Well, hi, I'm Jeff Strong. I'm creator of the Auditory Brain Stimulation Therapy Rhythmic Entrainment Intervention. I'm also co-founder and creative director of BrainShiftRadio.com. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about trance drumming and using different meter rhythms to get different effects. Trance drumming is part of a traditional therapeutic rhythm making technique that you'll find out there in the world. It really centers on playing mid-tempo rhythms that get the brain into the middle end of the theta state of consciousness. Now, all traditional therapeutic rhythm making techniques focus on theta. Theta is an internally directed state where we're just separate a little bit from our external reality, our regular world. It exists between about 4 and 8 beats per second. That's what the brain waves will be doing. At the very low end, we're down almost to unconsciousness. This is where deep meditation happens, where the traditional shamanic technique focuses. The idea here is that you're at the low end of theta. You are really internally directed. You don't have a lot of awareness of your physical body or your outer world. And this is the power of that technique, is to get to that deepest level. The rhythm is really simple. Everywhere in the world, the same rhythm is used. And it goes like this. It's just 4 beats per second, steady pulse, no changes, no orchestrations, just steady. Oftentimes it's played with a frame drum and a mallet. Very simple rhythm. The idea here is that it gets the brain to entrain, to synchronize to that same tempo. 4 beats per second, low end of theta. Trance drumming is a little bit faster. This is when you're in the mid-theta. The beauty of this state of consciousness is you've got 1 foot in the door of your regular world, your awareness of your intellectual world, of your body, and 1 foot into this other world of not having an awareness of that, of being really connected to an internal experience. And in this level of theta, we can enhance creativity, enhance intuition, problem solving. Basically what we're doing is we're disengaging from our intellectual thoughts and we're relying more on feelings and representations of things. So it's more abstract, it's less linear. And that gives us an advantage when we're trying to be creative or solve problems or intuit something. It's easier to listen to our guts when our intellectual, analytical minds are not getting in the way. So that's the beauty of mid-theta. That's what trance drumming is all about. Traditional trance drumming often uses unusual rhythms because we want to get the nervous system to engage, but also not to be able to predict necessarily, not to feel comfortable all completely in the process. And I want to experiment with that a little in this video. I'm going to play a real straight ahead rhythm, a rhythm that I consider one of the most common rhythms in the world. Something I talk about a lot, a 3-3-2, 1-2-3, 1-2-3, 1-2, 1-2-3, 1-2-3, 1-2-1. This isn't 4/4 time, or as I have it orchestrated here, or set up here is an 8/8. So there are 8 eighth notes. I'm playing 16th, so there's 16 of these. The pattern is played twice. It's counted 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1. If you're counting it in 4/4. If you're counting it in 8/8, it's going to be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 1. But basically the way to count it is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. The first grouping of 1 is going to be an open tone. The second grouping of 3, that 1 there, is going to be a slap tone. And then the grouping of 2, on the first beat of the grouping of 2 is going to be a bass tone. That's going to be our 8/8 rhythm. That's a real standard rhythm across the boards. It's very regular. It's in 4/4 basically. You can count it as 1 E and a, 2 E and a. You get this pulse. Your body and your mind are going to be feeling those quarter note pulses even though you're playing 16th notes. The next rhythm I'm going to do is going to be in 10/8 or 5/8, depending how you want to look at it. I'm adding 2 beats. So it's still going to be groupings of 4. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 5 E and a is the easy way to count it. What I'm doing is adding an extra bass note. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. Extra grouping of 2 there. Again, those groupings of 2 is going to be bass note. And then I'm going to play an 11/8, which basically is adding another beat, breaking it up. Now the difference here is that you're not going to be able to feel that 4 pulse, that 1E and a pulse, because now we're doing 11 instead of 10 or 8. So you can't break it down as easily. That's what's going to be a little jarring to people who are not familiar with odd meter. And it's going to have a little different experience for you. So I'm going to play the 4/4, the 8/8 first. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. I'll play it for a few minutes. Just settle in, close your eyes, contemplate a problem you're trying to solve, or a gut instinct that you need to have on something, or some creative project you're working on. Just see where you go. See how nonlinear your thinking becomes. See if you're able to make connections or think about things in a different way this way. And then I'll play the 10/8 and the 11/8, and we'll see how different that is for you. So here we go. I'm going to play at about 5.5 beats per second. This is the optimal place for trance drumming, kind of the low, mid end of theta. Again, you've got 1 foot still in the regular world of your conscious awareness, and then another foot in this, what's considered an altered state of consciousness. So I'll play for a few minutes. Just settle in, see how this feels, contemplate a problem, whatever. So that's straight ahead, 4/4 basically, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. Very regular, very something we're very comfortable with. I'm sure that you got a sense of movement in it. I'm sure you kind of felt the groove. Hopefully it opened your mind a little bit. That tempo, remember we're trying to entrain the brain to this low, mid, theta state of consciousness. This is a very regular rhythm. For some people, even though it's very comforting, because it's very round in its its presentation, it doesn't really bring them out of kind of their normal kind of limitations in their thoughts. I'm going to play a 10/8 here. I just add an extra beat in here. Initially it'll feel a bit different, but given that it's still going in an ability to break down by 4s, you can still feel that same pulse, that same 1E and a 2E and a pulse. See how this feels for you. Again, this isn't 10/8. It's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. The first grouping, I'm orchestrating the same way, the groupings of 3. The first one is an open tone, the second one's a slap. The groupings of 2 are both on the bass tone. I play it at roughly the same tempo. See how this is different than the previous one. So I'm sure after a while it felt just as familiar, just as comfortable. Hopefully it's a little different in feel to you, but this is the one that I kind of think sets over the edge. This is a more traditional trance rhythm. It's an 11/8. Again, I'm orchestrating it very similarly. I've got the open tone on the first accent group, slap tone in the second accent group, and then bass on the next two. The difference here is instead of 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2. In other words, 2 3s and 2 2s. I'm doing 3 3s and 1 2. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1. And again, orchestrated the same way. Same tempo roughly. See how different this feels. Again, this is 11/8 as opposed to 10/8 in the last one and 18/8 in the first one. So here we go. So I'm sure that felt a little different. Hopefully you got comfortable with that as well. I would think that in experience that this gives a little bit different feel to it, that actually opens your mind a little bit, because now you're no longer in this place of feeling that 4 pulse that we're so used to. Because you can't break it down into groups of 4. You can break it down into groups of 2 if you're looking at the 16th note end of it. But it's very different, that jarring approach. And that's the beauty of odd meter in this instance, that these tempos, it allows you to play a repetitive rhythm that's still engaging after a period of time. And it's even more powerful when you're playing. And that's how these trance rhythms are designed to be used anyway, is for the player. It's really not about the listeners anymore. This is really about experiencing what it's like to have kind of yourself creating the groove and then where your mind goes. So if you're a very much beginner, you might find that the 3-3-2 is just more intuitive. It's a little easier to get into. But if you recognize that no matter what you're doing here, you're breaking it down into groups of 3s and 2s. You don't have to count at 1 E and a 2 E and a. You're counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Once you get used to counting this way, it's no different to play in 4/4 as it is 11/8. You just break down the 2s and 3s. The 11/8 pattern is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. It's something that becomes very comfortable and familiar as 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. So play around with that. I'm going to end this video by kind of randomly playing between these 3. Kind of get a feel for what this is like. Taking 3 very simple rhythms with very, very similar, almost identical orchestrations, and just blending them together. So now all of a sudden you can't predict what the time signature is going to be, because I'm going to go from 8/8 to 10/8 to 11/8 and back around again. And I'll just randomly go from one to the next and see how much more engaging this is for you. As a listener, it can be more powerful. As a player, all of a sudden you're thinking about these changes, and you're not necessarily going to get into that same level of trance. You're not going to get that same mind-opening space because you're thinking about what you're needing to do as in your improvisation. So for a listener, it's really powerful to have it vary like this, but for a player, you kind of want that regularity. So if you're playing for yourself, choose one of these three and stick with it. I recommend you build up to doing the 11/8. It's a really cool pattern. It's a great place to start on trance drumming. Kind of get an idea of what this technique is all about. Mid to low theta, odd meter, playing really repetitive, trance-inducing patterns. So I'm going to play these three randomly across one to the next. Sit back, open your mind, allow yourself to contemplate a problem, check in with your gut, see what intuition you have about something in your life. Look at a creative project you're working on. These are the three main areas that this is really powerful, kind of opening you up to possibility. So here again, 8/8, 10/8, 11/8, randomly playing about 5.5 beats per second.